I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Emily for 6 years. We had what I believed was a solid relationship, good communication, shared goals, and a love that felt unshakable. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there, but I was too blinded by love to see them. I guess that's what happens when you let your guard down. Emily was always the life of the party, vibrant and outgoing. I remember how we met. She captivated me with her laughter and charm. It was all butterflies and rainbows for the first few years. But slowly, things began to change. I noticed subtle shifts in her behavior. She started coming home late from work more often, claiming that deadlines were tight and her boss was pushing her. I believed her, because who wouldn't want to climb the corporate ladder? But then there were the nights when she'd get dressed up just to go out with friends. Friends I hardly knew about, and whenever I asked about them, she would brush me off, saying it was nothing I needed to worry about. Then there was the day she wore my favorite shirt to bed. It's a simple, soft gray shirt that I always found comfort in. I could smell my laundry detergent on it, and it reminded me of home. I thought it was sweet that she wanted to wear something that belonged to me, a little intimacy that made me feel loved. Little did I know, it would become a symbol of betrayal. One fateful Tuesday, I came home early from work, excited to catch up with her. I thought we could cook dinner together or maybe binge-watch our favorite show. Instead, I found a different atmosphere in our apartment. Instead of the usual smell of garlic and herbs, there was just silence. I walked into the living room and my heart sank. There on the couch was Emily's phone. The screen lit up with a message notification that was impossible to ignore. It was from a guy named Mark. I didn't recognize the name, but what caught my eye was the flirty message. It was something like, "Can't wait to feel you again, babe. Last night was incredible." My gut twisted in a way I can't describe. Who was this guy? I felt my heart race and my hands trembled as I picked up the phone. I convinced myself I shouldn't invade her privacy like this, but I was desperate for answers. This was my life we were talking about. I quickly tapped the screen to unlock it. Thankfully, she never changed her passcode. When I opened the messages, I was met with a slew of flirtations, emojis, and what looked like plans to meet again. My world shattered in those moments. I dreaded this moment, yet here I was, staring at the evidence that my wife was cheating on me. The shirt she wore to bed, the late nights, and now this. It all started to click into place. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I was paralyzed by the weight of it all. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was the audacity of it. How could she be so careless, so disrespectful to me and our marriage? I decided to confront her. I couldn't let this go without saying something. When Emily walked in that evening, I was already packing the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt sick. "Jake, you're home early. What's wrong?" she asked, her smile faltering when she noticed my expression. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Emily." The color drained from her face as I held out her phone. Her eyes widened and she immediately attempted to snatch it from my hands. "What are you doing? Give that back." "Why, so you can deny everything?" I shot back. "I saw the messages, Emily. I know about Mark." Her facade crumbled. She stood frozen for a moment before her expression morphed into something defensive. "You don't understand. It's not what you think. Those texts are just what? Flirting, cheating." I interrupted, my voice rising. Emily's demeanor shifted. "You don't know the whole story, Jake. You never pay attention to me anymore. I felt lonely and Mark was there for me." I was dumbfounded. How could she twist this around? I had devoted my life to our marriage and she was playing the victim. I could feel the anger boiling inside me. I would have never imagined that my world would be rocked in such a way. The feeling of betrayal was a mix of disbelief and rage. I was furious, but deep down I was heartbroken. Now I was faced with the most important decision of my life. How could I move forward from this? The answer wasn't clear and the emotional storm was just beginning. As I stood there, staring into her eyes, I knew this was just the start of a long journey I didn't want to take. But I had to. I had to find a way to reclaim my life, my happiness, and my peace. After the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in our bed, the bed that felt more like a prison at that moment. Emily had stormed off to the spare bedroom after our argument, and I could hear her muffled sobs through the walls. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to understand how we got here, but another part was too angry and hurt to even consider it. The betrayal felt like a raw wound, and I didn't know how to patch it up. The next day, I tried to act normal. I went to work and pretended everything was fine. But underneath my calm exterior, I was bubbling with confusion and rage. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. How could she do this to me? How could someone who promised to love and cherish me betray me in such a profound way? I remembered all the little things we had shared, the dreams of buying a house, starting a family, growing old together. In that moment, they all felt like ashes. At lunch, I confided in my best friend, Tom. He'd been my rock for years, and I knew he'd understand. We met at a small diner down the street. As I told him everything about the late nights, the phone, the betrayal, his expression shifted from concern to anger. "Dude, you deserve better than this," he exclaimed, shaking his head. "You need to confront her again, but this time don't hold back. Make her see the consequences of her actions." His words resonated with me, but I was still hesitant. I wanted to be calm and collected, not the raging bull I felt inside. I decided to gather more evidence before making any rash decisions. I needed to know if this was just a fling or something deeper. The thought of Emily with another man sickened me, but I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. That evening, I sat at the dining table and waited for her to come home. I wanted to give her a chance to explain, to spill the truth without me pushing her into a corner. She walked in a little after 7 with an apologetic look on her face. "Jake, I'm sorry for how I acted yesterday," she started, her voice shaky. "I really didn't mean to hurt you. I was just overwhelmed." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out. Overwhelmed. Is that what you call it when you're texting another man? Because I'd call it cheating. Emily looked taken aback, but then her expression hardened. "I told you it wasn't like that. Mark is just a friend from work. You know how it is. Sometimes things get out of hand." "Out of hand? Emily, the messages were clear. You were sleeping with him. Are you really trying to downplay this?" My voice was calm, but the anger simmered just beneath the surface. She opened her mouth to argue, but then closed it, seeming to realize that the evidence was undeniable. Tears filled her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulous. "This isn't a mistake. This is a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to lie to my face." The confrontation escalated again, but this time I felt like I was gaining clarity rather than just trying to react to the hurt. I could see Emily squirming under the weight of her own guilt. I asked her about the late nights and her friends that I never knew about. Each answer was filled with excuses, but they all fell flat. I could feel the anger bubbling up again. "How long has this been going on, Emily?" She hesitated, and in that moment I knew the truth was coming. "A few months, but it didn't mean anything to me." A few months. I couldn't believe it. My heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest. "You've been lying to me, hiding this from me for months. And you think it doesn't mean anything. I thought I could handle both. I was wrong," she said, her voice trembling. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. The weight of her betrayal felt suffocating. I needed to think clearly. I needed to devise a plan for myself, not just an emotional reaction. So I asked her the ultimate question: "Do you still love him?" In that moment, everything froze. The air thickened between us, and I could see her weighing her response. It was as if an eternity passed before she finally said, "I don't know." That admission shattered whatever was left of my heart. I felt a wave of numbness wash over me. I had invested so much into our relationship, and now here I was, listening to the woman I loved confess her weakness. I couldn't stay in this limbo any longer. "Emily, I need to think. I can't do this right now," I said, my voice low but firm. I stood up and walked to the bedroom, leaving her sitting at the table, her cries echoing behind me. That night, sleep eluded me again. I felt empty and hollow, like a shell of the person I used to be. I had to make a decision. I could either fight for a marriage that felt irreparably broken, or I could walk away and reclaim my dignity. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I knew that I had to find out more about Mark. I needed to see how deep this rabbit hole went. There was a cold resolve in me. I would not be a victim of someone else's betrayal. I would take control, and this was just the beginning. The next couple of days were a blur of emotions. I barely spoke to Emily, and when I did, it was strictly about logistics, work, groceries, and the mundane aspects of life. I felt like I was living in the same house but in two separate worlds. I was determined to gather more evidence about Mark and the extent of Emily's betrayal. I needed to know who I was up against. I decided to start by looking through her things. It felt invasive, but I was at a point where I needed to know the truth. Late one night, while she was in the shower, I discreetly went into her nightstand. My heart raced as I rifled through her belongings, finding only the usual: a hairbrush, a few old receipts, and some skincare products. Then I stumbled upon a small notebook tucked away in the back. My hands shook as I opened it up. What I found made my stomach churn. I flipped through pages filled with details, dates, times, and names. It was a log of her escapades with Mark. There were notes referring to secret rendezvous, places they had met, and even the intimate details of their encounters. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My chest tightened and I struggled to breathe. I closed the notebook and placed it back where I found it, trying to suppress the rush of anger and hurt that threatened to overwhelm me. I needed to think clearly. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions any longer. I felt like I was spiraling and I needed a plan. The next day, I reached out to Tom again. I needed support, someone who could help me process everything I was feeling. We met at a bar after work, and I wasted no time diving into the details of my discovery. "Dude, this is insane," Tom said, shaking his head. "You have to confront her with this. She needs to understand the gravity of what she's done. It's not just a fling, it's a pattern." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "You're right. I need to make her see that this isn't something I can just overlook, but I also need to know more about Mark. I can't just throw everything away without understanding who he is." "Are you planning to confront him?" Tom raised an eyebrow. "I don't know yet. I need to gather more information before making any decisions," I replied, staring into my drink. "But I know I need to make a definitive choice about my future with Emily." With Tom's encouragement, I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, I began to dig deeper into Mark's life. I did some online searching and discovered that he was an old college acquaintance of Emily's. They had reconnected at some work event, and she had mentioned him to me in passing, but I never thought it was anything to worry about. It was clear now that their connection had evolved into much more. I also managed to find his social media accounts. I scrolled through his photos, and with each one I felt a mix of rage and sadness. There he was, happy and carefree, while I was stuck in this web of deceit and betrayal. He looked like a typical guy, nothing extraordinary, but something about him irked me more than I could express. Maybe it was the fact that he had taken my place in Emily's heart. As the days turned into a week, the tension in our home grew palpable. Emily still tried to reach out to me, but I was distant. I needed to let her stew in her own guilt. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I would catch her looking at me, a mix of regret and defiance in her eyes, but it only fueled my resolve. I was not going to be the one to apologize. One evening, after a particularly icy dinner where we barely spoke, I decided it was time to confront her about Mark again. I knew I had to lay everything on the table, including the notebook I had found. It was a risk, but I felt I had to do it. "Emily, we need to talk again," I said, my voice steady as I entered the living room. She looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "What about?" she replied, her tone defensive. "About you and Mark. I need you to be honest with me," I said, crossing my arms. "I found something that proves this is more than just a fling." Her eyes widened and I could see the panic set in. "What do you mean?" "I found your notebook, Emily. I know everything," I said, letting the words hang in the air. The color drained from her face. "You went through my things. How could you?" "It doesn't matter how I found it. What matters is what you've done. You've been lying to me, tracking your meetings with him like it's some kind of game," I stated, my voice rising. "I never meant for you to find that. It was just my way of keeping things straight in my mind," she stammered, desperately trying to justify her actions. "Straight in your mind? You've been sleeping with another man for months, Emily, and you have the audacity to try and justify it." She opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it, realizing she had no valid excuse. Her defenses crumbled, and for the first time I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I never meant to hurt you. I lost sight of what mattered." I felt a pang of sadness at her words, but it didn't lessen the anger I felt. "You need to understand the impact of your actions. You've shattered everything we built, and I don't know if I can forgive you." Emily began to cry, her shoulders shaking as she tried to reach out to me. "Please don't say that. I love you. I made a mistake and I want to fix it. I'll do anything you want." I pulled away, feeling suffocated by her desperation. "You can't just say you want to fix it and expect everything to go back to normal. Trust is broken and it takes time to rebuild. I need to think about what I want." It was a turning point in our conversation. I realized that I was standing at a crossroads. I could either choose to forgive her and try to move forward, or I could take a step back and reevaluate my relationship entirely. Deep down, I knew that the road ahead would be rough, but I had to make a choice. I left the room, my heart pounding. I needed to clear my head and think about what I wanted. I thought about my life, my happiness, and what it meant to truly be in a relationship built on trust. And as much as I loved Emily, I knew I had to consider my own worth in this situation. The days that followed were filled with a mix of confusion and clarity. I spent hours in my head, weighing the options. I'd never imagined my marriage could be at such a crossroads. I oscillated between feelings of betrayal and a longing for the woman I had once loved so deeply. Emily was still desperately trying to reach out, filling our home with apologies, tears, and promises of change. But each time she approached me, I felt a wave of anger mixed with sadness surge through me. I decided to take a step back. I needed space to think, so I reached out to my brother, Mike. He had been through a rough patch of his own and had come out the other side with valuable lessons. We had a long talk over dinner, and I laid everything out on the table: Emily's infidelity, my emotional turmoil, and the uncertainty of our future. "Jake, you deserve happiness and respect in your relationship. Cheating is a huge red flag, and it's going to take a lot to rebuild trust, if that's even possible," Mike advised. "But you need to decide whether you're willing to put in that effort." As Mike spoke, I could feel the weight of his words sinking in. I had to ask myself the hard questions. Did I still love Emily? Could I see a future with her after everything that had happened? Would I be able to forgive her? That night I went home and found Emily sitting on the couch, her face streaked with mascara from tears she had shed. I could see the anguish in her eyes, and for a brief moment I felt an echo of the love we once shared. But then, memories of her betrayal flooded back, and the anger returned. I needed to confront her again, this time about what I was going to do moving forward. "Emily," I called, my voice steady. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "We need to talk about our future." "Okay," she said, wiping her face. "I'm ready. Before I say anything, I need you to listen and not interrupt," I said, taking a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I'm hurt and I feel betrayed. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Right now, I'm struggling to understand how I feel about us." Her expression shifted from hopeful to pain, but she nodded. "I understand. I know I've hurt you, and I can't expect everything to go back to normal overnight. Just give me a chance to show you how much I care." I hesitated. "Emily, it's not just about caring. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. It's not just about showing me, it's about rebuilding trust, and that takes time." I know," she pleaded, her voice rising. "I want to go to couples therapy. I'll do anything to fix this." I thought about that for a moment. Therapy could be a good option, but I needed to know she was committed to the process. "If we do this, you have to be all in. No more lying, no more excuses. You need to be honest with me and with yourself." She nodded vigorously, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I swear, Jake, I'll be honest. I'll work on myself. I want to prove to you that I can change. I love you and I don't want to lose you." "Love isn't enough," I said, my voice firm. "You need to show me you're serious about this. I'm going to need time to process everything. I don't want to rush into any decisions." "Of course, take all the time you need," she said, her voice a whisper now. I could see that she was genuinely remorseful, but I still felt the weight of what she had done. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her, but there was a part of me that wanted to believe in the possibility of healing. I took a step back and decided to give myself some time to think. I would consider therapy, but I also needed to focus on myself. I started going to the gym again. which had always been a healthy outlet for me. I found solace in running, allowing my mind to wander as I pushed my body. It felt good to exert myself physically, to feel the endorphins wash over me. As the days passed, I began to clear my head. I reached out to my therapist from a few years back, wanting to get some perspective on how to navigate this situation. I had a few sessions where I could vent my frustrations and fears, and it felt good to talk to someone outside of my immediate circle. During one of those sessions, my therapist asked me a question that stuck with me. What do you envision for your future, Jake? What does happiness look like for you? It was a tough question to answer. I envisioned a future where I felt secure, loved, and respected. And right now, I felt none of those things. I realized I needed to prioritize my well-being above all else. I went back home after that session, feeling lighter but still uncertain. I was ready to act. Emily, I said one evening when we were both sitting at the kitchen table, the atmosphere tense and quiet. I've been thinking about therapy and I think we should try it, but I also want you to know that I'm going to be working on myself as well. Really? You mean it? She asked, her eyes brightening. Yes, but I need to take things one step at a time. I need to see if I can trust you again, and that's going to require a lot of effort on both our parts. I need to set some boundaries too. Absolutely, she said earnestly. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm committed to this. I nodded, feeling the gravity of the moment. It was a step forward, but I knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. I was determined to rebuild, but it would take time. I had to mentally prepare myself for the emotional roller coaster that lay ahead, a combination of hope and potential heartbreak. That night, I went to bed with a mixture of emotions swirling within me. I felt cautious optimism. Yes, the path was uncertain, but at least we were willing to navigate it together. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope, a small light in the darkness, but deep down I knew the journey was just beginning. It would require more than just words, it would require action and dedication. And I was ready for both. The days turned into weeks and we started therapy. Walking into that office felt surreal, but it also felt necessary. Emily and I sat side by side on the couch, our therapist, Dr. Green, sitting across from us. The room was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and calming colors, but I could feel the tension radiating between us. I was still grappling with my feelings, and I didn't know how long it would take for me to feel safe again. Dr. Green began by asking us to share our perspectives on our relationship and the infidelity. I took a deep breath, bracing myself to articulate my pain. I feel like I've been blindsided. I trusted Emily completely, and to find out she was cheating. It felt like a betrayal of everything we built together. Emily looked down at her hands, tears pooling in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Jake. I've realized how selfish I was. I let my insecurities and loneliness cloud my judgment, and I hurt the person I love the most. I could see her vulnerability, and part of me wanted to reach out and comfort her, but I had to remind myself of the hurt I felt. It's not just about the cheating, it's the lies that followed. I need to know that I can trust you again, and that's going to take time. Dr. Green nodded, guiding us through the conversation. She encouraged Emily to express her feelings and motivations behind her actions, to help both of us understand the underlying issues. As we talked, I began to see the cracks in Emily's facade, her struggles with self-esteem, the pressure she felt at work, the loneliness she experienced when I was focused on my career. It didn't excuse her actions, but it provided context. Emily, I know you're hurting and feeling regret now, but I need to see real change, I said, my voice steady. It's not enough to just say you're sorry. I need to see you actively working on yourself. I will, Jake, I promise, she replied earnestly. The sessions became routine, and each week we peeled back layers of our relationship. We tackled topics like communication, intimacy, and vulnerability. I found myself gaining a deeper understanding of Emily, but it was a constant battle between wanting to forgive her and grappling with the betrayal. One evening, after a particularly intense session, I decided to open up to Emily about my own struggles. I've been feeling lost too, you know. I confessed. I've been so focused on trying to hold everything together that I forgot to take care of myself. I thought work was everything, and in that process I neglected our relationship. Emily looked at me with wide eyes, realization dawning on her. I had no idea you felt that way. I just assumed you were so busy because you didn't want to be around me. I never meant to make you feel that way. I got caught up in my own world and it was wrong. I'm trying to do better, I said softly. Our conversation slowly began to shift from blame to understanding. We were both working on ourselves, and although progress felt slow, it felt like a step in the right direction. But with progress came setbacks. One night, I received a text from Tom inviting me out for drinks. I hesitated for a moment, thinking about how Emily might react, but I felt I needed some time to clear my head. I wanted to reconnect with friends and feel a sense of normalcy again. That evening, I met Tom at our usual bar, and we fell into the familiar rhythm of conversation. I shared everything that had been happening, the therapy sessions, and how Emily was trying to improve. But amidst all the positives, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Jake, I'm proud of you for working on this, but don't forget to focus on yourself too. Make sure you're not losing your identity in all of this, Tom advised, his tone serious. His words echoed in my mind. I had been so focused on working through things with Emily that I hadn't taken the time to prioritize my own needs. I decided then and there that I had to balance supporting her with nurturing my own well-being. When I got home later that night, I found Emily waiting for me on the couch, looking anxious. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I went out with Tom for a drink," I replied, trying to maintain a level tone. "I was just worried. I didn't know if you were okay," she said, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. "I'm fine, Emily. I just needed some time to clear my head," I said, taking a seat beside her. I realized that she had been trying to keep tabs on me, probably out of fear of losing me again. "I'm really trying to change, Jake. I don't want to lose you," she said, her voice breaking. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I know you are, and I'm trying too, but we both have to work on this together. I need you to trust me when I say I need space sometimes." "I understand," she said, wiping away a stray tear. "I just don't want to push you away more." I reached for her hand. "You're not pushing me away. We're both learning how to navigate this new reality. It's going to take time." As we sat there, I felt a flicker of hope. We were both in uncharted territory, but we were willing to figure it out together. Could see that Emily was starting to put in the effort, and that gave me a sense of purpose. I found myself wanting to believe in the possibility of healing. But just as I was starting to feel more optimistic, a wave of doubt washed over me. I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind, the fear that this might all fall apart again. I needed to be vigilant, to protect my heart while also allowing for growth and change. That night, I lay awake, contemplating our journey. I thought about trust, love, and the possibility of reconciliation. I wanted to believe that we could emerge from this stronger, but I also knew I had to be careful. The stakes were high, and I was committed to finding a way forward, even if it meant facing more difficult truths along the way. I had to remember that this process was about more than just saving a marriage. It was about rediscovering who I was in the midst of it all. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more conversations, and hopefully more healing. As weeks turned into months, I found myself navigating the complexities of our relationship with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Therapy became a cornerstone of our efforts, and I could see gradual changes in both of us. Emily was open about her struggles. She was attending workshops on self-esteem and even joined a support group for people dealing with infidelity. I admired her commitment, but it also reignited my own feelings of betrayal and hurt. One evening, during a session, Dr. Green asked us to discuss the concept of trust in relationships. This was a loaded question, and I could feel the tension in the air. Emily spoke first, sharing how she had taken my trust for granted and how that had led her down a dark path. "Trust is something I want to rebuild," she said earnestly. "I know it will take time, but I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to earn your trust back, Jake." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. Trust, for me, is like a fragile glass. Once it shatters, it's hard to piece it back together. Even if you build a new glass, it will never be the same. My voice trembled slightly as I spoke, the weight of my words hanging in the room. "I understand that," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "And I know I need to earn that trust back every day. I want to be the person you deserve." After that session, I took time to reflect on what I truly wanted. I realized that as much as I had been focused on Emily's journey, I also needed to prioritize my own healing. I began journaling my thoughts and feelings more regularly, creating a space for myself to process everything that had happened. One day, as I was writing, a thought struck me. Forgiveness is not just about the other person, it's also about finding peace within myself. I had been so consumed by anger and hurt that I hadn't realized I needed to let go of some of that pain for my own well-being. I decided to take a leap of faith and start the process of forgiveness. It didn't mean I would forget or condone what had happened, but it was time to free myself from the shackles of resentment that I had been carrying. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. When I shared this revelation with Emily, she was visibly moved. "I can't tell you how much that means to me, Jake. It gives me hope that we can rebuild something beautiful together." As we continued our sessions, we focused on rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. We began to establish boundaries, setting aside dedicated time for each other, being transparent about our feelings, and addressing any insecurities as they arose. I also encouraged Emily to continue her journey of self-discovery, exploring her passions and interests outside of our relationship. Slowly, I started to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. She was finding her confidence again, and it was inspiring. But even amidst the progress, I still had moments of doubt. There were times when I would see a text message come through on her phone, and the old feelings of paranoia would bubble up, but I fought against them. I reminded myself of the work we were doing, the commitment we had made to each other, and the steps we were taking together. One evening, after a particularly productive therapy session, we decided to have a date night at home. We cooked dinner together and opened a bottle of wine, allowing ourselves to relax and enjoy each other's company. As we sat on the couch, I felt a sense of warmth and comfort that I hadn't experienced in a long time. "Jake, I want to thank you for being so patient with me," Emily said, her eyes earnest. "I know I've put you through so much pain, and it means the world to me that you're willing to work through this." I took her hand, feeling the connection between us. "I can't say it's been easy, but I appreciate your effort. I want to believe we can move forward, but trust is something that needs to be rebuilt over time." "I understand, and I'm willing to do the work," she replied, squeezing my hand. As we talked about our hopes for the future, I realized I was beginning to feel a sense of optimism. It wouldn't be a linear path, there would still be ups and downs, but I could see the potential for healing. Months passed, and our relationship continued to evolve. We learned to communicate better, and I found myself opening up about my own vulnerabilities, allowing Emily to support me just as I was supporting her. One evening, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, I turned to her, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "You know, I think we might just make it through this," I said, my voice steady. Emily smiled, her eyes shimmering with hope. "I believe that too." As we sat there, I felt a warmth grow within me, not just for our relationship, but for the journey we had both undertaken. I had learned that love isn't just about the good times. It's about navigating the storms together and emerging stronger on the other side. In that moment, I let go of the past and embraced the future, knowing that while healing takes time, it also brings with it the promise of new beginnings. I felt ready to take on whatever came next, hand in hand with the woman I had once lost and was now finding again. And maybe, just maybe, love could survive even the deepest betrayals.